January 20. I'm going to call the January 24th meeting of the Lower Gwinnett Supervisors to order. Please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to make sure that everybody is aware that tonight's Board of Supervisors meeting is being recorded. Before we start our meeting, though, I wanted to take the time to acknowledge our long-term staff member who's leaving us, sadly, Kenneth Amy. We have a proclamation that we wanted to give to Mr. Amy, and I'll just read it. It says, Kenneth Amy has served as part of the Building and Zoning Department for over a total of 15 years. And whereas Kenneth Amy has served as the zoning officer and land planner for the Lower Gwinnett community since 2015. And whereas Kenneth Amy has contributed to his home community with dedication, honesty, and unselfish devotion. And whereas Kenneth Amy has always treated the residents, supervisors, employees, and developers with dignity, respect, and caring attitude. Therefore, be it therefore resolved that the Board of Supervisors and the employees of the Township of Lower Gwinnett hereby recognize and honor with our deepest appreciation Kenneth Amy for his years of fairness and compassion and commitment to Lower Gwinnett Township and its residents. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well deserved.
Does all the board members want to come down, take a picture?
One of these pictures with the blanket, we're gonna open the blanket.
I'm looking for a rocking chair. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Nice to see you run through my appreciate all the support from the board over the years and working with this wonderful staff we have.
I know that we all here haven't maybe spent, except Kathleen has. We all haven't spent as much time with you as the previous supervisors, but we appreciated all that you've done for our township. So we wanted to make sure that we acknowledged it. Thank you so much, Ken.
Yeah, Ken, you were the epitome of customer service, not only to our residents, but to our business owners and developers who so chose to come into Lower Gwinnett and invest their money. You will be well missed and you'll have very tough shoes to fill. Thanks for all that you've done for Lower Gwinnett. And we know where you live, so if I ever have any questions, you're close enough that I can walk over.
Has all of the supervisors have had a time to look at the minutes from the January 4th, 2022 organizational meeting? Yes. Looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
And a second.
Second,
Is there any questions or concerns by supervisors, the public? All those in favor, say aye.
aye,
Opposed? Motion has passed. A receipt of the minutes of January 10th, 2022, and I think that there was a revised version of the minutes that was sent this afternoon. Has everybody gotten a chance to look at those minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any questions or concerns by the supervisors? A motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
second,
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion is passed.
Madam Chair, if
Yeah.
I could just interrupt for 1 second. I know there's nothing more on the agenda for Mr. Amy, and I was
Yes.
just wondering if we could let him go early as his last present here. to Lower Gwinnett.
Absolutely, an early dismissal. Thank you so much, Ken. Take care. Okay, next on our agenda is the presentation by Michael Hill from eCollect on collecting delinquent
I'm
business.
here.
No, go ahead, Mr. Hill.
Oh, good evening, everybody. How are you?
Good evening.
I was having some technical difficulties, so I was wondering whether I was going to be able to be heard, but loud and clear via Zoom. So thanks for having me this evening.
Mhm.
eCollect, we're in a nutshell, what we do is we identify and collect discovery firm of delinquent business privilege taxes. Business privilege taxes would be the gross receipts tax that the township levies, which is currently collected by Berkheimer. We've been real successful in going in the areas specifically collected by Berkheimer, but no matter what who the collector is, we go in and we take a hard look at the tax rolls, and we identify businesses that are not on the current tax rolls who should have been paying taxes. Our first swoop in, we generally identify non-resident businesses who have performed services under Act 42 for 2014, which requires anyone doing business 15 days or more to pay the business privilege tax to the non-resident location. So we've kind of garnered an expertise in that since 2012. And in the handout that I believe you all have, we in just areas collected by Berkheimer, we've collected close to $10 million in northeastern Pennsylvania, the city of Williamsport. So our expertise is really giving is like a bird's eye view of coming in, combining our proprietary data that we have, getting the records from Berkheimer, which they would send to administration, and then we would identify the businesses that haven't paid. And really, it's a win-win situation for the township, because if we don't recover taxes, there's nothing due, and we keep administration abreast to what we're doing the whole time along. And that would go from selecting the audit discovery that we notice that we'll send out to each business, to as well as collecting it. And then finally, if the taxpayers don't pay, initiating legal action on our end. But again, that would have to be approved by administration along the whole way. We would never do anything without the township's approval. And like I said, we've been very successful in other areas in similar situations with recovering money that's due to townships and boroughs that we represent and school districts. Locally, we've had a great deal of success recently in Radnor, Ben Salem, Wilkes-Barre area school district, the city of Williamsport. The program, we just come in, it's seamless. You'll never get a negative coming from a business that they've been treated unfairly or unprofessionally. We take pride in dealing with them professionally. Our general counsel was the former deputy attorney general of taxation, and myself. We have a combined 60 years of experience doing this. And in the current times, it's important that everyone paying the business privilege tax, that you have a level playing field with the businesses who haven't paid, that may have not, that should have paid for those years that are due. So-
Mr. Hill, I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, I'm finished.
I just wanted to clarify a couple things. You said under Act 42, anyone who has been working in the township for 15 days or more is required to pay the business privilege tax?
That's correct.
Okay. And you wouldn't be going after businesses who currently maybe just are delinquent in their business privilege tax. You would be going after those who had done business in our township for 15 days or more, and maybe were unaware that they needed to pay the business privilege tax. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. That's usually our first step, is to get to identify taxpayers that the township and Berkheimer are not even aware of.
Okay.
What would be a second step? I mean, you talked about that's your first phase. What are the other phases, if there are any phases of eCollect's program?
The second phase we would take a look at the records, and we would identify businesses that are located in the township that haven't registered and or haven't paid. Again, if there's not a communication process between code enforcement and Berkheimer, there's some likelihood that they may, even though they're the county earned income tax collector, there's a likelihood that they might be missing some taxpayers, and we would identify those taxpayers second. And then finally, the third step would be the taxpayers that are on their rolls but have refused to pay. And are and are just generally delinquent. So it's like a 3-step process.
What
Okay.
is the statute of limitations for this? How many years do you go back?
There's no statute if you haven't filed, but generally speaking, it's a 3-year statute. We tend to not ever experience anything that's more than 6 years, but generally 3 years.
And e-collect would be entirely responsible for its actions. So for example, if the township or e-collect were sued by a resident over the collection practices of e-collect, the township would be indemnified by e-collect for any action or judgment, correct?
That's correct. We carry $1 million in errors and omissions insurance, as well as we would provide the township a surety bond as required by Act 32, the Local Tax Enabling Act.
How long does this process usually take once you get started?
Once we get the records, Berkheimer's pretty good. All the requests will come through administration to Berkheimer, but then administration would turn the records over to us. We'd put it through our program. You would have money in hand probably within 60 days of what we identify. Significant money, probably with between 90 and 120 days.
Is there any other questions for the supervisors? Any questions of the public? No, is there anyone online? No. Okay. Well, I thank you so much, Mr. Hill, for coming before us today and taking the time out of your evening to present the information around e-collect. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night.
You as well.
Bye-bye.
Next on our agenda is a presentation by William Blair from Wireless Realty Advisors on cell phone coverage and mapping survey. Is he, is Mr. Blair online? Don't see him. Mr. Blair aware that he was making a presentation this evening?
Yes, he agreed to tonight.
Well, I guess.
That's a good strategy.
We can wait, I guess, and if you see Mr. Blair pop up, circle back around.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good to me. Next up is building and zoning. Acceptance of a right-of-way on Dagger Road from Bethlehem Baptist Church. I think that is that you? Or is that Neil?
I can handle it.
Okay,
In 2017, the Board of Supervisors approved a final minor land development for the Bethlehem Baptist Church to permit the expansion of their parking lot. Pursuant to that plan and application, they agreed to dedicate the ultimate right-of-way on Dagger Road and Penland Pike, which also includes a portion of the township trail system. So this is just to accept that offer of dedication.
okay. That seems straightforward.
Mr. Stein, can you just tell us what that obligates the township to when we accept the dedication?
When you accept dedication, the ultimate right-of-way then becomes part of the township public road system. So that in the event you needed to expand either road in the future, you have the ability to do that without a condemnation, for example.
Thank you. Any other questions from supervisors?
And I assume we're also obligated to maintain that right of way?
Yes.
Good. Any other questions from anyone online, from the public in general? So I'm looking for a motion to approve resolution of the Township of Lower Gwinnett accepting dedication of a road right of way of Penland Pike and Dagger Road, Bethlehem Baptist Church, it's 17-02 LD.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passed. Just as a, I guess, a point of order, after Mr. Hill presented, we actually have on the agenda an authorization to accept a revised proposal from eCollect PA LLC to identify and collect delinquent taxes for Lower Gwinnett Township. Given that we haven't had a significant amount of time to discuss, unless you want to discuss right now, we could table this or we could move forward. So I'm looking for a motion.
I moved to table it so that we can look at the Berkheimer agreement and see if there's any issues that would present a problem or a conflict with Berkheimer, given what eCollect is proposing to do. I don't think we've done that, and I think it's
Okay,
prudent to do so.
okay,
I'll second that motion.
okay. All those, is there any questions, any other questions? The supervisors? All those in favor of tabling the motion?
Aye.
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 Opposed? So we have tabled that motion. Okay, sorry, slightly out of order. So authorize the township to expand our agreement with Keystone Municipal Services to provide services for a zoning officer and planner. Township manager?
Yes, as everyone knows, Keystone Municipal Services does our building and building inspections and planning review. I'd just like to add, as Ken Amy will be leaving on January 31st, we have reached out to Keystone Municipal Services for some assistance with the zoning officer and land planner for Lower Gwinnett Township. And I'd just like to authorize adding that part of the municipal services it would be at $75 an hour. And they would work the same hours as Ken Amy is currently working, which is roughly 10 hours a week, and then up to 5 night meetings a month.
So we have an existing contract or agreement with Keystone Municipal Services. This would just expand it to include zoning officer and planner.
Correct, yes.
And will we have access to Keystone Services or the individual who's going to be assigned to the township beyond those hours, obviously, if we pay, but will we have access, should we need additional time?
Yes, absolutely.
And it's just currently one individual.
It's one individual that I think I sent out his resume to everyone.
Mhm.
He will be meeting with Ken Amy and myself on Thursday. And we'll work that Thursday and Monday if everyone authorizes the approval tonight.
Okay. Is there any additional questions from the supervisors?
Yes, online here. Is this Keystone Services employee going to take over all the duties that Ken has performed, or is it a partial replacement?
He will be doing the zoning, acting as a zoning officer and the land planner, as Ken Amy is doing currently.
Okay.
Any other questions from supervisors? Any questions from the public? No? Looking for a motion to authorize the township to expand our agreement with Keystone Municipal Services to provide services for zoning office and planner.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So we have authorized the expansion of Keystone Municipal Service. Moving on to resolution 2022, it's RFP for professional services in Lower Gwinnett Township. I asked our solicitor to look at developing an RFP for professional services at a given point in time so that it's a regularly occurring review of our contracts with professional services. so that we don't get comfortable and so that we can ensure that we're getting the best possible professionals to assist our township in whatever, services that they're provided. Attached and included in our manager's report, and I think above on the screen, is that existing resolution. It outlines that Lower Gwinnett is a second-class township. We provide for the award of professional services without engaging in the public bidding process. It indicates that we would request a request for proposal or request for qualifications no less frequently than every 5 years. It's pretty straightforward, but I don't know if you want to expand upon it, Neil.
I think that was an excellent summary.
So essentially what it is it's kind of requiring at minimum for Lower Gwinnett to look at all of our contracted professional services at no less frequently than every 5 years. Is there any questions from the supervisors?
So, and just to be clear, we're talking solicitor, engineer, traffic consultant, zoning officer. What else am I missing? Is that- Okay. Professional services.
Yes. Just those contracted professional services.
Danielle,
Yes.
Kathleen, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Were you finished?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, are we gonna pull the trigger on all of these at the same time or stagger them in across time? And if so, when does the trigger start for each of the different service providers?
Well, ideally, no, we would never want to do them all at the same time.
Exactly.
I think that we should have a conversation amongst ourselves in relation to the guidance that we have to follow under the Sunshine Law as to how we would want to proceed. I think this just sets the stage for us to be required to do it no less than every 5 years. Clearly, we just did our solicitor, I think it was 2 years ago, so we're in compliance for that. And it just gives us the opportunity to look at every other professional service outside of the organizational meeting that happens whenever a new board takes place, and it could be a lot more disruptive to do it during that period of time. So it allows us to come to an agreement as to how we want to proceed and when we want to proceed, but I would think that it would be not in our best interest and not in best practices to do them all at once.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll assume that our solicitor's clock has already started and then make decisions on these other services, right?
Well, I think the clock starts on everybody today because the resolution is today.
Yeah.
Before today, we didn't have a requirement. So
Okay,
everybody's clock starts now, but as the resolution says, we're just required to make sure it's no less than every 5 years. We can do, by way of example only. We could look at the solicitor every 2 years. We could look at the traffic engineer every 1 year. We can do it any way we want, I suspect, as long as we do it at least once every 5 years. But my understanding, and maybe Neil will say different, is that it starts today because today is when if we pass this, today is when the obligation will begin.
Correct.
I agree.
okay, fair enough.
Any other questions from supervisors? Any questions from the public? Nothing online? Okay. So we have before us this resolution. I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to accept the resolution?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passed. Moving on to the appointment of our investment advisory committee member. It seems that we inadvertently, truly inadvertently, did not include our investment advisory committee member at our reorganization meeting, I'm assuming.
Mhm.
And I apologize, the name is not included
Jim Morris.
Is it Jim Morris or?
Jim Morris,
Smith?
yes.
Okay, I didn't want to say the wrong name.
I make a motion to appoint Jim Morris to our Investment Advisory Committee.
Second.
Reappoint, right?
To
He's-
reappoint,
Reappoint.
Mr., he wanted
Thank
to
you.
remain,
Yep.
yes. I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Is there any questions or concerns by any of the supervisors? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And we have a reappointed Mr. Morris to our Investment Advisory Committee, and we thank him for his service and his willingness to volunteer. Next up is the appointment of the deputy tax collector. My understanding is our current tax collector has indicated that she would like to appoint a deputy. It was included in the manager's report. Is there any questions or concerns by any of the supervisors? No, sure, and I can read the deputy tax collector that's being identified as Melissa Wanzek.
Just for informational purposes, I called Natalie today just to get some background on Melissa, and she is the Whitpeen tax collector. There's the Ambler tax collector, and between the three of them, they're kind of appointing one another's deputy collector, so.
To ensure they have coverage.
Acceptable. Yep.
Yep. Is there any other questions by any supervisors? Any questions by the public? So I make a recommendation, or I'm looking for a recommendation to accept the deputy tax collector, Melissa Wanzek, for our current tax collector, Natalie Cormier.
I recommend the acceptance.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there an abstention? I didn't hear you, Tessie. I apologize.
I voted in favor.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to verify. Thank you. The appointment carries. Moving on to the acceptance or the appointment of, I'm sorry, the appointment of our EAC member. So we did get 3 applications of associate members, it appears, of the current EAC. And of those applications, we have to make a decision as to who we wanted to recommend.
I'd like to just, before we make a motion on a specific individual, I just wanted to make a comment. So I'm one of the supervisors on, who sits as a liaison on the environmental committee, and in doing my due diligence and reviewing the resumes, and I went back and I looked at the Pennsylvania EAC handbook and the enabling statute, that sort of authorized the municipality to create the EAC. And I discovered that in the provision on membership, it says whenever possible, one member shall also be a member of the municipal planning board, which in Lower Gwinnett is our planning commission. I think, the EAC was established in 2017, and I don't know whether they haven't been faced with this before, where someone who's also serves on the planning commission has expressed an interest in serving on the EAC. But, I think going forward, it's good practice to keep this in mind, because it's sort of a command when they use the word shall in the Pennsylvania statute. And the purpose of it makes sense. They want the EAC and the planning commission to work together on these environmental issues. So I say that all before as a precipice to my making a motion for Maureen Nunn to be appointed as the EAC member, because she currently serves on the planning commission, and she's certainly all three applicants are very qualified, but because she's very qualified and also serves on the planning commission, that's why I make the motion for Maureen.
Thank you. Supervisor Martin. So I also did read the statute in the handbook, and it does indicate that they shall, if possible, whenever possible, be a member of also the planning commission. My only question is to our solicitor. Neil, is there any issue with someone from our planning commission also serving on the EAC? Because in reviewing our planning commission code, it does indicate that no township official could serve on our planning commission.
Yeah, I think if you read the EAC statute together with the second-class township code as well as the municipalities planning code, the state statute would preempt to the extent there was any prohibition. So I think this is perfectly fine.
Okay. As long as there's no conflict there. Okay. So we have before us a motion to appoint Maureen Nunn to the open EAC seat. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And is anyone abstaining?
I abstain.
Okay. So it has passed 4-1. So it is approved. Maureen Nunn is appointed to our EAC.
If I could ask the reason for Supervisor Twerski's abstaining?
I guess it's up to Supervisor Tursky if he wants to respond.
I know Miss Nunn, she's excellent. I know the other applicants as well. And this is the first I'm hearing of the statute. And I'm not in a position to vote, so I don't want to vote uninformed.
Thank you.
So moving on to the acceptance and approval of the amended EAC bylaws. I have before me, I guess, the bylaws and the amended or the proposed amendments to those bylaws. Mr. Stein, would you by any chance be willing to explain for it seems like it's only the parts indicated in red, and I don't think it's on the screen. So can you give us kind of the nuts and bolts of what the EAC is proposing amended?
Yeah, this is an amendment to their bylaws, and I should point out that their own bylaws require that to be amended, the supervisors have to approve the amendment. This relates to associate members. Of course, the statute allows the EAC to appoint associate members. And this is just, if you will, codifying the state law into the bylaws so that it's clear that the EAC can appoint an associate member and require that member to attend at least 2 regular EAC meetings going forward. So it's a relatively simple amendment.
They're adopting what the state statute indicates as far as what is and what is not an associate member, or are they going beyond that?
No, it's this strictly just deals with appointment of associate members.
Okay.
It doesn't enlarge or otherwise change
Okay.
the state statute in any way.
Is there a time limit on the 2 meetings that need to be attended?
Not in the proposed amendment.
So they can be within a 5-year period of time?
Yeah, it's really up to the EAC how they want to handle that.
Okay.
They do have however, a provision that says a member who is absent without reasonable cause from any 4 consecutive regular monthly meetings or from 6 regularly scheduled monthly meetings during any 12-month period can be asked to resign under those circumstances.
Okay.
Well, my understanding is they can ask the board to remove them or to have the person resign.
Yeah, that's
And
correct.
The EAC doesn't have the power to remove members. And the EAC doesn't have power to appoint members, correct? That's the board's function?
That's the board's function.
I believe Lisa may be online, or Mark Schaefer. Would either of you like to comment on the time of the requirement for the 2 regular EAC meetings? If you would prefer to have a time limit in there?
This is Mark Schaefer, and I believe the way this is written is if someone was interested enough to show up for a couple of meetings, then they're welcome to join us as an associate. Was the way this is more to kind of start, not as a requirement to maintain the membership. So if someone, just didn't attend one, but said, this is interesting enough, I'd like to come back for more, and they show up for more than a couple of meetings, then they're in a position to be considered for associate member. It doesn't force us to make them associate members, but it's just kind of a threshold to be considered, that if they show up regularly enough and express that. We have had members who show up, or we have citizens who show up for every meeting by Zoom, but have said, I just want to watch, but I don't want to become a member, and we're fine with that as well. So we have both cases.
And up until now, we haven't really had a codified process for inviting a member to become an associate member. And that's the other purpose of this change in the bylaws, is to set out a process so that everyone is treated equally. I think, I don't have the wording in front of me, but I think the 2 meetings had to do with that they have to come for at least 2 meetings for us to consider, I guess within a year or so, but that's not written down, but for us to consider them as associate members, because it's just a sign of their interest and willingness to participate.
What is the criteria for approving someone as an associate member? Just showing up for 2 meetings?
And expressing the interest and being a contributor.
And being willing to participate, and there's not any requirement for any particular expertise. If that's kind of your implied question, it's an interest and willingness to help and contribute to the process, but it's not an automatic thing. The change in the bylaws allows for us to actually, the regular members have a conversation and a vote to determine whether that person should be named an associate member.
So I guess there's, a couple of objective criteria, and then the remaining are subjective criteria for appointment. So you attend a couple of meetings, you should express an interest and you want to contribute. Then after that, it goes to the regular members to decide if you want to admit an associate member. And I guess my question is the criteria that will be applied to admit someone as an associate member. And I just, again, I'm asking because I don't know. Is that right? There are these objective criteria and then the rest is subjective?
As Lisa's indicated, we haven't had a real process because there's been no barrier to anyone becoming an associate member who wanted to be one. And we've had the opposite. We've had someone we've offered and they said, no, I just want to show up on Zoom. So we haven't had a need for a formal process because everyone who's been shown an interest and shown up, we said, geez, you want to be an associate member? Sure. And I don't think we've ever turned anyone away.
I think the current associate members, several of them have been part of the EAC since before it was an EAC. And when just regular committee members, when we were the Gwynedd Green, and when we became an EAC and had to pick 7 of us to be the regular members, then the others who had been regular participants became associate members because we couldn't fit them on the fuller committee. Other people that have joined, that have become associate members since then have we've been told they've been invited to participate as associate members by the supervisor who was the representative. So we met them once they were already sort of named associate members, is my recollection. So this just makes it a little bit more of a kind of a formal process. We haven't had new associate members join us in a while, so.
How many associate members do you have?
1, 2, 3, maybe 4. The 3 people that applied for the position of regular member, plus another person who's been in the group since before it was an EAC, but is not, and she's our communications committee head, but she's not interested in becoming an official regular member at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
You good? Is there any other questions by any of the supervisors? Any questions by the public? Or from the public? No one else? Okay. So we have before us amended EAC bylaws. I'm looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. I'm going to move on to the authorization to purchase a new F-550 dump truck for Public Works. Is Fred here? Hi, Fred.
Yeah, good evening. In the capital budget, there's funds available for purchase of a dump truck. It's one of the smaller ones. We have 2 this size. This would replace the older one. We use these 2 trucks, the 2 smaller dump trucks, just about every day for something, if it's hauling stone or just transportation or cleaning up in the parks, a multitude of things. So the 2008, we'd like to sell when we get the new one, but right now, we'd like to get authorization to buy it. It's kind of crazy how prices are changing on things and the availability. So I'm afraid if we don't move forward with this, we won't be able to get a truck till the year 2023. So that's why we're asking for it a little early in the year.
Is the 2008 that you're wanting to sell is completely inoperable at this point?
No, we're still using it.
Okay.
Luckily, we can. We use it for salt and snow plowing in the winter. It has a chronic problem with the power takeoff unit. I'm not a mechanic, but from what they tell me, our mechanic and the other place that we have sent it to be fixed, it was just a poor design. The newer truck isn't the same, so we're not buying the same problem. Just that year, Ford, the power takeoff unit isn't the best design. And for example, in the summer, it was out of service for about a month because the power takeoff wasn't working. And you need that to dump the body, move the snow plow, run the salt spreader. So it has given us problems, but it's not totally out of service.
Okay.
So what will happen? Are we keeping the 2008?
No, when we get the new one, I'll bring up to you, I'll ask permission to put it on
Okay.
municipal bid and we'll sell it, for the best price we can get for it.
The 113,454, is that the budgeted amount? And I apologize that I don't know this.
The budget amount is $120,000 for this truck.
Okay. And Mr. Zollers, I'm sorry, just one last question. And I'm sure I suspect I'm missing something. I went through the supporting documents and I see that the price for the body, the chassis is 61,905.
Yeah, there's a page before the last page. I think it shows the CoStar's discount.
Oh, and then a discount. Okay, that's what.
Yeah, I don't know why that's not like the last thing they show you, but in their printout, the discount's off of that
Okay,
price.
gotcha.
And it's not the last page.
all right, thank you. I knew I was missing something. Thank you.
I have a question. Do we have space to park this vehicle in a covered garage or does it sit out in the weather?
Currently, the 2008 is kept indoors, so we would keep the new one in that spot when we get it. And any overlap, obviously, the older one, we leave outside till we sell it.
Okay, great. I know that we have a space crunch, so I just wanted to understand if it was going to, for this much money, we'd like to have it in a garage.
Any other questions by the supervisor? Any questions from the public? No? So we have before us the authorization to purchase a new F-550 dump truck for Public Works, and I believe the total proposed price is 57,700.
No, no, no.
Well, no, I'm sorry, the entire authorization is 113,454.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations. Authorization to advertise the 2022 road program. I think that's Jim Hirsch, our engineer.
Thank you. So we have a request to authorize advertisement for the bids for the 2022 road program. As in previous years, we'll be doing 2 contracts, one for conventional mill and overlay, and then a second one for an ultra-thin bonded wearing course. I can tell you that there's 3.1 miles of road that'll be programmed to get some sort of rehabilitation for this year. The schedule would be to put the bids out in February, open them March 6th.
So the first question is, I see that the conventional project list of just mill and overlay, and then the ultra thin bond. I guess my question is, how do you determine who gets what, and what's the major difference?
So Fred and I drive the roads, and we make an evaluation on what needs what. Generally speaking, roads that have are more damaged would get the mill and overlay, and then some of the other roads that might just have surface cracks in the wearing, we would just do the ultra thin bonded wearing course. It's cheaper, doesn't last as long, but you can extend the life of that road and kind of push the need to spend the money for the mill and overlay to future years.
This is in our current budget.
Yes.
What's the amount for this in the current budget?
Total amount for the, to include all the road program pricing is 524,591.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions by the supervisors? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion to approve the advertisement of our 2022 road program.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved.
Danielle, I have a question before we move on. I noticed that there's a really dangerous pothole on the corner of Swedesford and Township. I don't know if that's a road that we're responsible for or not, but my question more broadly is how are our streets holding up by this time of the winter with potholes and needing to be repaired?
I don't think Chad, our traffic engineer, is here to answer that specific question, but Tessie, I can assure that I will make sure he gets it. Hopefully give us an answer. I mean, that is kind of a question that I had for Jim, which I don't know if you could answer. But given the event that these roads that you've identified as potentially only having surface cracks, if they progress because of the winter that we can't predict, or because of, I don't know, usage, but most likely it's winter and winter conditions. If they progress, would you then transfer them to the conventional program?
We could pivot if necessary, but generally speaking, roads that we've identified to get the ultra thin wearing course, we evaluate them in like September, October. They don't change that much in one
winter.
season.
Okay. So one winter would.
The pothole that Tessie references on Swedesford, that's actually a part of Swedesford Road that Upper Gwynedd maintains. But we can have Fred pass that along to their public works director.
Thank you. So it
Thank
is,
you.
it's in Upper Gwynedd? Or is it just a part that they maintain?
It's actually in Lower Gwynedd, but there's an agreement between the two municipalities that we take the full width of the road from half the road and then they take the other half and that's their half.
Okay. Thank you so much. I guess we're back to you, Jim, for an update on our flood study near the Wissahickon School District.
Yeah, so this an update on the flood study, which quite honestly is just to let you guys know that we're starting the work. We were notified of the award the end of last year. One of the first things we did is request FEMA's data for the flood study that they had already done, which would have determined what the floodplain was. I
So
haven't got.
just to clarify, we're talking about the flooding that comes, I guess, down Brookside Avenue and parts of maybe Knight Road and Francis, but related to the dams or the dam potentially that's on the Wissahickon School District property.
Correct. The scope of the study is to analyze the floodplain from where the creek goes underneath the railroad tracks on Ambler Yards property, all the way up to the dam that's on the Wissahickon School District property. So we requested the data from FEMA. I haven't received it yet. We requested it like the week of Christmas, I think. So it should be coming in very soon. So once we get that data, then we can determine what the scope of our survey will be. We're going to work on some desktop analysis of the drainage area to the dam, drainage area to the channel along Brookside. And Craig and I met with the school district, so they're aware of that the project's moving forward. They've given their blessing for us to go on their property and, you know, evaluate the dam, do survey the dam. So we're it's progressing forward.
And they've given money too, right?
We have Ambler Yards has contributed to a partial payment of what we would be required to pay in the grant. And Wissahickon, I have to send them an invoice. So then, but they have agreed to pay a partial as well. So.
Right, thank you.
The Wissahickon School District and Ambler Yards are contributing.
Mhm.
Wissahickon School District and Ambler Yards are contributing.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Jim, is there an anticipated time frame for the assessment to take?
My goal is to have this wrapped up in the first half of this year. But that doesn't mean that that's how long it'll take me to come back to you guys and give an update. As soon as I have some sort of, you know, information, I'll be back in front of you guys to give another update in, you know, 2 months from now.
Okay. So it is progressing. You're starting and you're waiting on FEMA data and have begun some desktop analysis.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Are there any other questions from any other supervisors? Is there any questions from the public? No? Okay. Thank you so much, Jim. Before we go to the manager's report, I don't know, did William Blair join us?
I don't see his name on here unless it's under a different name, but I don't know if anybody is here to talk about it, but I don't see that particular name at all.
Okay. Mr. Blair, if you're there, raise your hand. Okay, I guess we'll move on to the manager's report. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Before we go to the manager's report, even though I was excited, we're going to open the floor to the public to address anything that's not on the agenda.
Good evening. Am I allowed to speak?
Can you just state your name and your address?
So Danielle and board, this is Carmina Taylor. In this capacity, I am representing a member of the Wissahickon Alumni Association.
Okay.
So on December 18th, we reestablished the Wissahickon Alumni Association and we launched the first installment of the Black Hall of Fame for Wissahickon alumni. One of the things that we did in the beginning of the program is we wanted to give the audience some really good historical information about Penland and Ambler. We were fortunate to have 2 elders in our community that grew up in Penland speak about it. And then I was able to interview Mr. Walter Moore on video and have him contribute to the program. when the program was over, more people had asked if we could have more intentional gatherings and conversations with people from Penland and Ambler and get more of the history. So I followed.
Are you still there?
Carmina, we lost you.
Where's William Blair when we need him?
Penland Park.
Okay.
Oh, can you hear me now?
We can. We lost you for a couple minutes. there.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm on my
No,
laptop.
it's okay. It's okay.
So basically, I'm here because of what happened at the Hall of Fame, but Mr. Moore had told me and reminded me that the actual place where the baseball field is in Penland Park is actually the site where the Penland School was. And I learned from Joe Langella. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I learned that the facade part of the church in Penland was erected in 1908 to 1909 by domestic workers. And so I was thinking that it would be a really good opportunity for the township to support signage in the community because people are unaware of some historical things that are that exist. And I had mentioned to someone, it's definitely becoming much more gentrified, and the historical points in our community are important for everyone that enters that community to find out. So in April, we're having our second installment of our Hall of Fame weekend. And the Friday of the weekend, we are going to have an intergenerational community gathering at Penland Park. I've already completed the permit. And I was hoping and thinking that I could work with someone on the board to see if we can have signage unveiled on that Friday of that weekend in April. So I can formally email you guys something, but I wanted to plant the seed here tonight.
Thank you, Carmina,
Able
for
to
bringing
hear
that
me?
forward. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you
Okay.
for coming and bringing that forward. We're aware that I think you're referring to the McCormick House, which is situated on Ingersoll baseball field. Is that what you're referring to as far as the school?
No, I'm referring to the baseball field in Penland Park
You're
on.
talking about the playground, which used to be the
Yes,
school?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
I wasn't sure because I know the McCormick, okay. So you're talking about the baseball field and you're talking about Penland Church.
Right, and I think it would be really nice to also have Welcome to Penland Village there because of the connotation that it's known for. 3 signs.
3 signs.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Mr. Moore is on the phone. I mean, Mr. Moore is here. I just wanted you to know this wasn't in a vacuum. The Alumni Association is reestablished from people that are from Penland as well, alumni from Penland. So I just would like direction as to who I could follow up with, because the Historical Society is also allowing me to go into the building to get more information about Penland. And Joe Langella actually has the original copy of the listing of the Penland Homeowners Association roster. And I think that's something that we could also share in April as well.
Okay. I mean, if you want to reach out to me, we do have, so we've established a historical committee. Well, we've established the beginnings of a historical committee. We're
Right.
taking applications currently. I think Mr. Langella, Joe, I call him Historical Joe, but he has applied as many other people have applied as far as wanting to be a part of that committee. Is this something that you're interested in being a part of? Is that what you're expressing?
Well, that could be too, as actually he's asked me if I would be interested. And as I thought about it, I don't know how long the process is to get it on board, but it would be a really good opportunity to unveil these signs under the commission. I know that's why I'm here. It's a 4-month thing, but hopefully if you're able to get everyone decided that this could be something that could be and announcing the commission in itself. I just thought I would start today.
So, I mean, I can just speak and say that we haven't planned in our budget to purchase signs related to these 3 items.
Right.
We would have to do an amendment to our budget and kind of address what the cost of the signs would be, where they would be going, acquire them, and hopefully turn all of that around by April. Seems like a tall order, being as though it's essentially February. I'm not saying it's impossible. What we could do is we have to kind of take this back and kind of process this information and see the feasibility of if it even
Sure.
could be executed.
Absolutely. If not, Danielle, we could certainly allude to it at another time. I just wanted to be transparent in
Mhm.
terms of what we're doing in the next few months and the significance of people gathering in Penland that weekend.
I appreciate that, and thank you for keeping us abreast. Please continue to, as you have other events, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Moore, do you want to say anything?
Let's see, am I unmuted?
Yes,
Mhm.
you
You
are,
are.
sir.
Oh,
How you doing, Mr. Moore?
fine, thanks. How are you? How's everybody there? Stay safe,
Very
folks.
well.
Yes, I have talked to Carmine in reference to this, and
Mhm.
I have taken note of some things that happen, and I wonder why. Because the history doesn't follow quite that way. However, I think this is a very good move, and I surely hope that whoever's responsible, the historical group, will find it within reason to erect the necessary signage. In reference to the Lower Gwinnett school that was right where well, it's between the basketball court and the same area.
Mhm.
I think that is primarily important. I noticed the other day that the baseball field is termed the Springhouse baseball field. And I thought that's strange that you put Springhouse baseball field in Penland.
Mhm.
And yeah, so there is work to be done in that area. I appreciate the time.
And thank you so much, Mr. Moore. and I appreciate your feedback and taking the time to come speak to us.
If I could just comment to Carmina, I think it's a great idea. I think it serves as a nice inaugural venture for the historical commission that has been formed, whether or not the committee has actually gelled by that point. As far as the funds, we've purchased signs plenty of times. And I don't think the challenge is finding the funds. I think the challenge is the timing, because you have to order them, you have to design them, et cetera, in terms of getting them in the ground by your April date. Just putting that out there, but I appreciate you coming before us with such a great idea. And I think we could all be in agreement to help you shepherd this through.
And I just want to say lastly, I mean, April, I'm just letting you know when we're having it, and I certainly will invite you guys to come to the gathering. But if it doesn't happen in April, at least it could be a target on Flex.
Yeah.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Danielle,
Yes.
if there's no public comment, I would just like to follow up that conversation and put a plug out for the historic committee. And, you know, if people in the audience know of themselves and other folks in the community who would like to get involved, I'm not a lifelong member of this community, but in the years I've been here, I understand we have wonderful historic buildings and places and in history. And I think it's time we really committed to preserving what we can and erecting historic signs and so forth. So I'd just like to welcome anybody that is interested to apply to be on this committee. So thank you, Carmina, for that.
Thank you so much. Is there any more? Anyone else? Going once? Okay, it seems that I avoid bolded parts of the agenda, so I'm going to go back and talk about our committee reports. I know that there was 2 committees that that met between our last supervisor meeting and this current one. I think they were both EAC and Park and Rec. EAC and Park and Rec, I think, are both the supervisors that participate in those committees. I think are Tessie and and Janine. Did you guys want to give us any updates about the EAC and the Park and Rec?
Tessie, do you want to do EAC or do you want?
Yes, I can comment on one issue that the EAC has been discussing. And again, we have the co-presidents online so they can chime in. So some time ago, a wholly volunteer effort was made to set up a recycling bin for batteries in the lobby of our township building. And the volunteers process the batteries once they're dropped off and see to it that they're delivered to the recycling company. But recently, it has come to our attention that maybe people that don't live in Lower Gwinnett are using that facility. And it has become a little bit onerous to try to keep up with the number of batteries. So we're not asking tonight for any sort of resolution. We just want to bring this to your attention with the idea that perhaps going forward, this event could be coupled with other township events to to make it maybe quarterly instead of a continuous receptacle that's in the lobby. And so we want to discuss it amongst ourselves and the EAC a little bit more before making a final proposal. But we would appreciate any input or suggestions as to how this can best be handled.
The issue is people from out of the township are dropping batteries off and it's becoming too much. Is that the deal?
I don't know for a fact that people outside of the community are coming, but there were advertisements on, I think, the patch. And so there have been some drop-offs that have been quite numerous and have overwhelmed the system. Additionally, the batteries need to be prepared before they can go to the recycler, and individuals dropping off the batteries have not been doing that.
Can I just ask one clarifying question? I know that's completely done by volunteers, but are the volunteers taking the existing recycled batteries or batteries to be recycled to a recycling plant, or are they shipping them? How is, what's the next step in the process beyond dropping them off at the township building? Or do you not know?
Essie, do you want me to chime in? This is Brenda Dahl. I'm one of the.
Oh, wonderful,
members.
yes.
To answer your question, Danielle, we prepare, there's shipping containers that Battery Solutions sends us. They're like I don't know what size they are, but a couple gallon tubs, shipping containers. But the tube that's in the vestibule, that's where people, hopefully only residents, but we're sure, there's no way we know how many people are residents or not. So that's one of the reasons we want to switch this up, because like you do when you do the electronics recycling, you have to be a resident and you guys check people's IDs before they drop off their televisions or whatever. So we are looking to do something to confirm that people live in Lower Gwinnett to start with, and then before they put their batteries in a container for us, that they're properly prepared. Like Tessie said, there are certain types of batteries, lithium ion ones in particular, that need to be taped. Otherwise they can cause a fire during the shipping process. So we want to make sure people are just coming and dumping them. I know one of our other volunteers the other week, there was a box there full of batteries and pills. There's the pill collection thing right next to it. And somebody just dropped it all off. Hundreds and hundreds of pills and hundreds of batteries.
So you're thinking you need to rework or come up with a new solution as to how to do the battery recycling?
Right. It's a valuable program. We're keeping all these batteries out of landfills. But it's just in its current iteration, it's not working well. So we've got some good ideas. Our next EAC meeting, actually probably before that, just a small committee within the EAC will be coming up with a plan, moving forward, but we want to not cancel, but stop the collection in the vestibule. I actually owe Jamie an email about this, to get that tube out of there and put a sign up just so people will stop bringing them.
So it will be stopping. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Yep.
Is that it for EAC, Tessie?
I believe that's the only thing we were ready to discuss in a public forum. But I would like to ask Jamie, since she has arranged the electronics recycling day, if there are, if it would be okay to couple on this battery recycling day with that event, if that would work. Even it may not be amenable because of the size of that event, but if you could just think, you and Craig think about it maybe and see if there are other events that the township runs. Maybe Pike Fest would be a time that we could offer the battery recycling, and so that it won't be such a onerous thing on the volunteers to have to keep up with it every day.
Thank you, Tessie. I guess, Janine, are you going to talk about Pike Fest? I mean, not Pike Fest,
no.
Park and Rec.
Yeah, unless Kathleen, you want to?
Go right ahead.
I don't think there's much to raise about our Parks and Rec meeting. The one recommendation that I think the board will see coming soon from the committee is with respect to the wall, the amphitheater wall that's proposing a bit of a hazard at the moment. A recommendation that those pavers be removed and palleted and stored until we can decide, what the next step is in terms of planning for that area. So I think you'll see a recommendation there, as well as a recommendation that we consider a strategic plan for a larger strategic plan for our parks.
Isn't that wall relatively new?
No.
I don't think the wall is, well, relative, I guess. What was it? It's less than 10 years.
It was built with the park, so early 2000s, 2004, 2003.
I would consider that relatively new for a wall.
Yeah, right.
And I'd like to think that the walls of my house are gonna stay up more than,
Right.
18 years, but what do I know?
I guess new is relative.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was relative, and it was, it wasn't. But anyway, the ground is apparently pressing it out, and there's kind of, at the moment, it's posing a hazard. And so the proposal from the committee is going to be just to have the township remove the pavers, and then we will figure out what to do, but at least remove the hazard.
So mitigate some of the risk of the hazard first, and then figure out what the next steps are going to be.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so Sandy put those recommendations in our packet from last week. So that's up to, getting that eventually on the agenda. All three of the recommendations. And I have a question for Neil. One of the recommendations is for a subcommittee to be formed to look into purposing the McCormick House ideal, because this came to the surface with our survey. There's a great need and desire among our residents to have permanent bathrooms at Ingersoll Park. And the committee discussed somehow using what's currently there with the McCormick House to provide for them, at the same time giving a nice hefty nod to the historic value of the house. Can the Park and Rec Board form this committee themselves amongst their members?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think we can also consider looking at that, like with the strategic plan too, in terms of, it may make sense to consider that all together.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to, just for clarification purposes, Neil, if there's no monetary, for us to approve the removal of the amphitheater wall, do we need to actually take a vote?
If you're going to expend funds, yes.
I'm assuming that there isn't any funds expended based upon what was in our manager's report.
This is going to be just labor by the Public Works Director, or Public Works Department, not the director.
Get your work on it.
I have
You
a,
need that new dump truck.
I have a question and a comment. On the subcommittee for the Parks and Recs committee, one thing I would suggest is to involve Lower Gwinnett Little League, since the McCormick House is, since the McCormick House is on Ingersoll, right there at Ingersoll Field. On the amphitheater wall, I guess it's the lawyer in me, but when I hear hazard, that worries me. Can somebody explain the nature of the hazard?
I can only say that it appears from what was written by our Park and Rec director, and I don't want to speak out of turn. It says the deteriorating block wall is in advanced state of deterioration. One area of the wall is tilting significantly and can be expected to collapse in the near future, as has previously occurred on the other end of the wall. It is recommended the potential impact zone be cordoned off with barricades or fencing to prevent potential injuries to park guests. Given the concern has existed for 2 years, it is recommended that the Lower Gwinnett execute repairs to stabilize the tilting structure.
Are there barricades or yellow
Yeah.
tape or anything on it now?
I think there is like a orange
Yeah, our insurance carrier has,
fencing.
Okay, all
our
right.
insurance carrier has flagged this.
It's
we need to
plastic
do something
fencing,
with
though.
it. And there's an entire file, Mike. This has been on the Park and Rec table for, I think, over a year now. That I'm sure Craig or Jamie can get all that information to you.
And I think that, and I'm just, just my own opinion, I think that one of the issues has been what would be the next step, and the amount of money that we expended as a township on erecting the amphitheater wall, which was a significant amount of money. And even if it was just 18 years, I'm not comfortable just wasting upwards of $40,000 to tear it down.
I mean, it seems like,
I mean,
listen, I'm not an engineer, but it seems like somebody should have sort of thought beforehand, this might not be the best place for a wall. If there's ground settlement or whatnot. So that's a problem for another, that's a problem for another day, but let's just make sure everyone in the township is
So I
safe.
think now we have to make it safe.
Yeah.
Right. We're in the spot we're in.
So if we're just using our own public works department, we don't have to vote.
No.
Okay. Well, and it's not on the agenda, but it seems like we're all in agreement that, and I don't want to make assumptions, but it seems clear that we are all in agreement that we need to make sure that no one's injured.
It seems
I would agree.
Yeah, and even if you want to keep the wall, you have to take it all apart to
rebuild it, right?
back up.
They said if we were going to rebuild it, we'd still have to take the pavers out to do whatever needs to be done structurally to make sure it doesn't fall down again.
It's more like it's sliding as opposed to falling.
Right, being
Right.
pushed. It's like,
Yeah. So, I'm not an engineer.
I'm not an engineer. We got our insurance company raised.
Yeah, I think we need to go ahead and get this done. It has been hanging for some time, and I would feel better if we just go ahead and authorize them to do it.
Well, it's not on our agenda to vote. We would have to take a vote to amend the agenda to then authorize them to vote. I don't know if you guys want to go through that process, but we can. Is anybody opposed to allowing them to take it down?
I mean, what is the consequence of taking down the entire wall? Or just removing the pavers?
Just removing the pavers.
Removing
is my
the pavers.
understanding.
What is the consequence of removing the pavers? Do we have an engineer's assessment of what the consequence of that is? Does that mean the wall collapses? What happens?
It's not a real wall. Are you thinking it's like a stucco wall?
I'm just trying to,
Yeah, it's like-
I'm just
Yeah.
trying to figure out what the consequence of removing masonry work is to a masonry structure.
I think that
It's just a,
I think it'll be loose ground.
Jamie,
Loose
Kathy,
dirt.
So it's my understanding, talking to Fred and Craig, that the pavers are the wall and that it's not, it might be 3 feet, 4 feet tall at max. So as you remove the pavers, the wall will cease to exist and Fred can just grade the bank down and there'll be a 4-foot slope bank there and until you want to put back whatever you want to put back.
Just dirt.
Okay,
I don't-
understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions by supervisors? I do see that Kathy Morris, who is the chairman of Park and Rec, is chairwoman of the Park and Rec.
Unmute myself.
Is her
Yeah,
hand
there you go.
raised?
Thank you, Danielle.
Mhm.
Actually, I was going to say exactly what Jim just said. That so it's really just a matter of regrading it down. It'll still kind of, it's not a high wall. As Jim said, I don't think it's any more than 3 feet high. I don't even think it's that. And it just grades down, Mike, you know, kind of, so it'll just be the ground will be there. That'll be it. The hazard is if anybody goes on it, regardless of whether that caution tape is around it, if somebody would walk on it and one of those gave way, that's very dangerous. It's very dangerous.
Well,
So-
this strikes me as something I learned in law school called an attractive nuisance. So my suggestion and recommendation is remove the wall as soon as possible. With or without the fencing around it. If a child can get at it,
Yes.
that's an
And they
attractive
can.
nuisance.
They
And
can.
we should remove the wall. I don't know why we're waiting to remove the
Yeah,
wall.
and Neil, do we need to vote on it? Like you said?
You don't need to vote on it. The manager can direct the
Okay.
Public Works Department to do that.
So, and saying that no one's against it, I would say that the manager should direct the Public Works Department to remove the nuisance. The attractive nuisance.
Well, that sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one last question, which is, what, we're going to just pile up the pavers? Do we not need to put something around them also to make sure kids aren't climbing on them?
I think they're going to be stored.
Okay.
we'll remove the pavers and remove them from the park.
Yeah, what we say, Tessie, is that they'll be put on pallets and then we'll store them. So there'll be a place for them. And just so everybody knows, 2 years. We've been asking for 2 years. So but we had COVID in between that, but 2 years. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Thank you for taking the time. Is there anything else
2
from
years
Park
to
and
get the
Rec? I
wall
think,
down. Took 2
the
years just to make the
amphitheater-
decision to get the wall down.
and all of the additional recommendations were included in the manager's report.
Can I say something about the pavers, the wall, whatever we're calling it?
Yes.
This is a question for Ms. Morris. Has it been in this basic condition for 2 years or it's progressively getting worse?
It's been in this condition for 2 years, if not longer.
I've been on this board since January 3rd. I don't really know what happened before. This is sort of the first I'm hearing of it. I think the board's responsibility is to maintain the health and welfare of the community, and it should not take 2 years to remove something that's dangerous.
We would agree with that. Thank you. Yes. Could I also, Danielle, can I just comment about one of the other recommendations that Janine had spoke about? Is we thought the recommendation for and you know, we've talked about a comprehensive strategic plan for the parks and our facilities. But we thought maybe first, like the steps to take are first to, and I think what we recommended was to ask, and we did speak to Jim already from Gilmore, you know, just to having an overall review of our playground equipment and the facilities. And I think that discussion will help us lead to our more of a comprehensive plan. Do you know what we're saying? One step at a time, I think, is what we need to do. You know what instead of jumping right into a big full plan, let's assess what we have here and, you know, the life of the playground equipment, et cetera.
And
Like
then,
so you're talking like maybe
I think it's the same type of
It is.
strategic plan
so
we
it's
did
an
for the public
assessment
works
of the
building.
existing structure. So a strategic plan typically takes what you currently have and does an assessment of it and then makes recommendations based upon.
yeah,
Comprehensive plan is different, but
Yeah.
a strategic plan as it relates to just Park and Rec would look at all of our parks, kind of determine what is currently there, what may be areas for improvement, areas of need. And they go through like a SWOT analysis with this, evaluating your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, give you all of that. They typically have to interview internal and external stakeholders. And then in that report can give you an idea of where you could potentially have areas for improvement.
no,
Our thinking was more for, if, this is just an example, not that this is what it would be, but if it came to be, let's say that Oxford Park's playground equipment needed all to be replaced, let's just say that would be an opportunity, then you could assess the whole park itself and then look at maybe I'm not saying this, please, I'm so worried that everybody's going to say that you could put a pickleball field there and rearrange it or something like that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I absolutely do.
okay, that's where we're headed. That's what our thoughts are. Because I think, we've had discussions that the equipment is aging,
Absolutely.
and that we would hate for it that all of the equipment has to be replaced at the same time.
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
that's what I just wanted to clarify it. Thank you.
Yeah,
No,
there's a
thank you
big,
so
there's a
much,
big
Kim.
safety concern that we want to anticipate in regards to our playground equipment. And like Kathy just said, we don't want to be hit with having to replace it all at one time. So Gilmore will assess the condition, and then we can anticipate replacement, get on some kind of loose schedule, and that'll help us with our budgeting moving forward too.
Absolutely.
I have a question as a follow-up sort of, and maybe this is included already, but the outcome of the survey last year had some, there were some very strong opinions of people in the community. Are we, the Parks and Rec Committee, putting together or maybe working with the group to come up with a strategic plan to address all of those points, or as many as we can? And so that's in the works, I'm assuming?
Yeah, that would be included. I think, there was preferences for bathrooms, for different feedback from the community. So we would definitely want to take that all into consideration as we move forward with any sort of strategic plan.
Very good.
Yeah, I would say the answer is yes, Tessie. That's what we're doing.
Okay, excellent.
Well, thank you guys so much for those two committees were, I think, the only two that have met since our last meeting, which is on the 10th. So thank you guys for that update.
You're welcome.
Now on to the manager's report.
Yes, just real quick, I just want to thank Ken Amy for his dedicated service for the many years that he was here. And also just a safety announcement, I guess, from the fire companies. They are participating in the 6 ABC Save a Life fire campaign. If anyone needs a smoke alarm, they are giving out free smoke alarms to the residents. If you have any questions or you need a smoke alarm, just go to either North Penn Volunteer Fire Company's website or Wissahickon Fire Company's website. You can find all that information on the Lower Gwinnett website that this information is already on. But they are giving away free smoke alarms through this Save a Life program. And they would love to hand out smoke alarms. So that's it.
That's it? That's it. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. I guess we'll move on to supervisor comments. Start with Kathy.
Sure. Well, I'll just reiterate my special thanks to Ken for all his years of service. And that's it.
Thank you. Tessie?
Yes, I would like to thank Ken for all the time he's devoted to Lower Gwinnett and, helping the township progress, and I wish him well. And that's my only comment. Thank you.
Okay. Janine?
Sure, I'll just echo the comments about Ken. I didn't have the opportunity to work with him long. I hope it wasn't something I said. But my understanding is, and I know everyone speaks so highly of him, so, it's great to have people serve the community for that long.
Ditto all those comments. I worked with Ken on the planning commission for many years. He was a truly trusted advisor in the greatest sense of that term. He
So
will be
true.
missed.
Yep.
I just want to kind of echo, having worked with Ken as a supervisor, just as a resident, he was very helpful. He guided me through the process of renovation, and it was very, almost like a friendly face in a world where you're not sure if you can trust everybody. It will be deeply missed. I wish we had the opportunity to work further with each other. I also wanted to add that our new citizen portal is still up and running. If anyone has any issues, concerns, they can take a picture, submit all of that stuff right online and watch the progression of the resolution. I wanted to also add that our volunteer application is now completely online. You do not need to print out any piece of paper in order to apply to be a volunteer. And we are appreciative of all of our volunteers. We are still looking for a liaison to the Ambler Ambulance Association, as well as we are still accepting applications for our Historic Society, as well as the Bethlehem Pike Revitalization Committee. So we have received a good amount of volunteer applications, and it is still open. So if you have friends, neighbors, colleagues, anyone, or if you yourself are interested, please, you can just submit the form right on Lower Gwinnett's website. You don't have to print anything out. You don't have to send an email. You just enter in your information, click submit, and you're done. We would greatly appreciate anyone's knowledge that they want to bring forward to share with the township. With that, I thank everybody for coming out and thank Ken and wish him a happy retirement. This meeting is adjourned.
So Jamie,